Hello, everybody. This is David Lemel here with Team Powerhouse. This is the Real Estate Powercast with Team Powerhouse, and I'm very excited to have you guys all here today with us. To my left, I have Erik Vazquez, Jean-Max Senat, and Balvin Wright. And we're excited to talk with you about a bunch of different things in real estate. So first thing I want to tell you is to please visit us on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type in Team Powerhouse Real Estate. Please subscribe. What we're going to do every week is give out a free tumbler randomly to the people who subscribe. And we're very excited to say thank you so much to Heather Knott's Creative Crafts by Heather. If you're interested in a beautiful tumbler, she makes these beautiful things. She made them for our team today. And we're very excited to say thank you so much. Some of the issues we're going to talk about today include the buying process. And things we can talk about with buying process you may want to know about is having a reputable lender, having a reputable attorney. Erik, want to jump on that?
Some buyers will gravitate towards whoever the realtor uses as an attorney. I find it's not repetition, but the attorneys that I use most often, we've had success with them. They've addressed any of the problems that have ever surfaced. So we try and stay with a group of attorneys that we know are successful and are going to get us through any challenges that have come up.
Absolutely. Balvin, how about talking about what the buyer's process, what they need to do, and getting ordered to the lender, what they those kind of things.
Well, first thing, need to get you pre-approved. Make sure you have the right credit score. Make sure there's no pending issues as far as stuff that's unresolved that can affect your approval process. And just make sure you get to a good lender, of course, that's timely and can get back to you in a timely manner.
Absolutely. And also you mentioned before about we talked about before when you're buying a house and going through the process, you mentioned there's certain things we shouldn't do while buying a house.
Right. You shouldn't. Once you get the process going, make sure you don't purchase any big items like you want to buy a new car, nothing like that. You don't want to put anything in your credit cards, nothing like that. Because definitely that's going to affect you at the closing or even before the closing.
Keep getting to the closing at the end of the day, right? Absolutely. Gene. Regarding the buyer getting ready to buy a house, there are things like closing costs, right?
Yes.
And actually, we need to make sure the buyer has closing costs in advance in their hands, ready to go, right?
Correct.
Because otherwise, they can't close on a house today. In today's market, you definitely need to have your money situated, deposit and closing costs. If you don't have your closing costs today in today's market, you're going to find very difficulty in going to contract. Wouldn't you agree?
Correct.
Absolutely. Anything about people coming from New York? Any new buyers today you've been dealing with?
Oh, that's definitely the rush that's coming into Connecticut right now. I went to New York recently for a gathering, and I was actually talking to people who were referring me out because they knew of people coming from New York, and they're definitely going over the top of what the asking price is.
The buyers from New York are very qualified buyers. Wouldn't you agree, Erik?
Yes. I can't quite put my finger on why it is. If you talk to folks around the state, especially competitive buyers, some of the buyers that are trying to get into houses, some of the complaints are these New Yorkers, they're coming in with boatloads of cash. I can't say that anybody's coming from any particular state with cash, but I have seen an influx of New Yorkers coming into the state.
I think what it is, the New Yorkers are making not only a large amount of money because they're working in New York, they make more than Connecticut, generally speaking. And they're used to renting for $2,500 to $3,500 a month for rent. So for them to buy a house today, they come in, I need to buy, not I want to buy. And their intention is very serious. So you as a buyer need to make sure your intention is very serious when it comes to getting ready for that process. Part of the buying process includes inspections.
Well, inspections are a key component because that's where you're going to figure out whether this is a house that you're going to continue in on the process or not. You may come across some things that will scare you. In most cases, most of them are easily resolved, either by the seller, or they can be fixed by the buyer later on, as long as it's not something that's going to be necessary to qualify for the loan. But you definitely want to make sure that you get a good inspector, and you definitely want to make sure that some of the bigger ticket items are in a good position. You want to make sure the roof is in good shape, foundation, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything you want to mention about the inspection process, Balvin?
Also recently, I had a buyer went to the inspection, and the report that the inspector presented to her, and the inspector told the buyer that the repairs will cost her about $50,000.
Wow.
Right away, that was a red flag for her, and she right away she backed it up with the deal. It was the first time home buyer. They get scared a lot with stuff like that. There was roofing problems, some issues with the basement leaking, stuff like that. So.
Speaking of home inspections, I'm going to say, as a seller, if you're selling a house, one of the best things you can do if you've owned a house for 10 years or longer, especially, do a pre-home inspection. A pre-home inspection is a great thing for you, because while you're living in a house, you may not know all the problems you're having. If you get that pre-home inspection done, what's going to happen is you're going to get to know the items, get those items fixed, and the process of buying a house is going to be much easier, and selling a house much easier for you, because you're going to know the items in advance and take care of them before the buyer gets there. Buyers get scared, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're buying no matter what price range you're shopping in, it's the most money you've ever spent in your life.
It's going to be your biggest purchase ever.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the stress in buying and selling a house is a lot on both sides. Sellers want to sell, buyers want to buy. We have to get each of them to be prepared in the best way possible. I can tell you from home inspection issues, as we've done so many over the years, we walk through a house and there are things you can automatically see right away. You see stains on the ceiling, automatically we go, we must have a problem. Maybe that's been fixed already. Well, it's been fixed.
Chipping paints on.
Right?
Stuff like that.
Peeling paint's another great issue you bring up, Balvin, over here. Mortgages, whether you're going to go VA, CHFA, FHA, and even conventional, I think might be picking up on the peeling paint. I'm not positive yet. But you definitely want to make sure if you have any peeling paint in your house, and even if it's tedious around the door frames, around the windows, scrape it, paint it, get it done before you get your house in the market, because a buyer can't get a mortgage with it. And that's important to know as a seller. And this may sound silly, but you want to be proactive.
Well, it's also about presentation.
Absolutely, presentation.
If you're, if you're selling your house, it's like if you're going on a job interview, you're going to dress your best. You want to look your best. You want to present the best way you can.
Right.
And it's the same thing with your house. You want to address as many things as possible, primarily cosmetic, because you have somebody walking through your front door, and the first thing they see is chipping paint at the front door. It's almost sour the process from there on in.
That's a very good point.
They're like, if there's chipping paint on the front door, I can imagine what the inside's going to look like.
It's a very
And
good
sometimes
point.
it's attention to detail.
Especially in this market also, I think the sellers don't really pay attention to that because they think they can get whatever they can for the house. And
Well, that's a very good point. Sellers today are getting top dollar for their houses, but they need to be,
fix it. Yeah.
understanding that the buyer's emotion level is high, right? The buyer's coming out of pocket with everything they have to buy this house. I think one of the most important things about sellers is we need to make sure that they are getting their house ready for sale. So a pre-home inspection might be a great thing to do, especially if you've been there for a few years or longer. In addition to that, there are things buyers are looking for when buying a house. They want to see the gray walls and the white trim. That is everything. They're looking at your house on a little 1-inch photo on your cell phone, typically, right? Make sure your house is prepared and set up in a way that is going to look presentable to the buyers. Guys, what do you talk about the buyers you've been with today or before and how they may want to not want to see a house? Any experience you've had with that?
I've had experiences where the buyers, they see the house and they're not understanding the time frame process. The houses now, actually good houses, are lasting maybe 3 days on the market to 5.
If that.
If that.
Maybe 12 hours.
And the buyers are shuffling their feet. and wonder why they're not getting into these houses.
That's another good point. I definitely agree with you that the buyers definitely need to be on point, and their agent needs to be on point, right? Agents have to be live and ready to go, because those houses come on the market, off the market, the buyers are freaking out a little bit, right? And we need to make sure as agents that we're able to get them into the house as quickly as possible. And of course, try and find out as much about that house prior to getting in there. Are there any offers in the house? How many offers maybe they have? Strategy is very important in this process of buying a house, and a good agent will definitely help you get through the process much easier. Erik, tell me more about getting the house ready for sale. I know we deal with this kind of situation with, maybe furniture in a house that needs to go or something, or.
Well, I mean, it's somebody's home. So the first thing you want to do is, you want to be respectful about what their house looks like. Everybody has their own preference on design and furniture and all of that other stuff. But what you're really doing is you're letting them know what the buyer is going to want to see. It's not a criticism of their house, of knickknacks they may have around the house or clutter or anything like that. Even colors. You're gonna present to them, hey, I know you love this color, for your walls, but a buyer may not, and you want them to want the house.
Absolutely.
So maybe changing the wall colors, for instance, could be something that's a tipping point for somebody loving a house. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a good point you're bringing about the colors of the walls and changing these around. The cost of paint is not that much. You can paint yourself or get somebody to do it, but time is very important. The sooner you get things done with your house, the better chance of your home selling for more money. I definitely will say that when you have a seller that's getting their house ready for sale, they're missing that. They could be missing serious opportunities for themselves. So,
but it's not a deal killer.
Not a deal killer.
There are folks that are out there that they see the house as a blank canvas, and they say, you know what, I can change things.
Right,
I can change wall colors.
They see beyond the color, absolutely.
Depending on the price point, of course, too, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree? I definitely think that a lot of times people have furniture in their house that almost, and it sounds awful to say this, but your furniture in your house may not make the house look as positive the house actually is. If you've got furniture in your house, and I'm going to say this, and it sounds sensitive about this, but if you got furniture in your house that you don't like, that you have to get rid of, it's probably a good time to get rid of it before you put your house in the market, right? Because how's that going to look on camera, and how's your house going to look?
Not to mention oversized furniture, which takes away from the room.
Right.
That's another issue.
Absolutely. So getting a house ready for sale, then maybe doing a pre-home inspection. Talk about painting, doing colors in your house, make sure you have no peeling paint.
These are just some of the topics that we'll talk about on these podcasts.
Absolutely.
We'll have folks in here that will expertise hone in on those particular topics for us.
And one thing I wanted to add to that is when we do the walkthrough of the seller and we go over a list of the things that they need to do before we put the house on the market, it's very important that they actually follow that list.
Right. Not show up day of the photo shoot and the house is still exactly the way it was. That's always very exciting. And then, getting the photographer, the videographer, getting everybody there to get your house ready to the market. You definitely don't want to have this happening chaos last minute. That costs a lot of drama. A lot of people don't know about when they're going to buy a house and do a home inspection on their house, the different things about maybe city water versus city sewer versus septic and wells, and how many bedrooms a house should have versus a septic system. Erik, maybe you want to touch about this a little bit over here.
Well, I can tell you I was a neophyte coming in because if you didn't already know this, I moved here from New York.
New York is in the house.
New York City. So, Long Island, but I grew up in Queens. But I had no clue what a septic was when I moved here. I had no concept of anything outside of something civilized like a sewer system,
Right.
So, I know boatloads about it now.
You definitely are.
Being an owner, plus, all the inspections and all of that. Oh, I wouldn't call myself a subject matter expert on septics, but I know a pretty good amount.
We've definitely seen some cases where houses have a septic that is not working properly. It can be fixed. A septic tank can be replaced. The septic system has many parts to it. We're actually going to bring in septic inspectors and inspectors to kind of go over more details about that kind of stuff, to teach you and get you to know more about this kind of things. Things we want you to do is kind of send us questions online over here. Go and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. Go to Team Powerhouse Real Estate, hit the subscribe button. Again, remember today, once we finish today, we're going to pick a lucky winner for a free tumbler brought to you by Heather. Heather, who made these beautiful tumblers. It's called Creative Crafts by Heather. But going back to the whole city
Well,
water.
go back to the septic for a second.
Yes, definitely.
This is as much about care of an existing septic that you have also. Okay.
That's a very good point.
So there's like when you bring somebody who's a septic person in, if you have a well with a septic, which is pretty common, the water softener is rumored, and that's why I want to have a septic guy in here who can kind of confirm this. I've had debates on this, that water softener ruins the concrete, burns the cement in a septic tank.
Interesting.
Okay.
I've heard that several times.
So there's a backwash that comes off of this this treatment, the water softener.
Right.
The backwash is supposed to go to a dry well outside of the house.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's not supposed to. I've been to houses, I've been to inspections, and I've seen it myself where the backwash is routed to the actual waste system and it's going out into the septic.
Absolutely.
So, that's something that you don't even need a home inspection. You can see that on the day of a regular showing and go, this has me concerned.
Do you know, it's interesting you mentioned that. I came across that a few years ago where the seller had owned this house for so long and they bought the house like that. They had no idea that this wasn't allowed. I think this in the last, and can I say, the last 10 years, they might have changed or come up with this new policy that protects the septic systems and making sure that doesn't happen anymore. So it's very frustrating to sellers when they find out they have to spend $1,500 on a dry well.
Right.
And but it's a very important feature that definitely needs to be addressed. And sellers should know that. Do you have your well, right? What's the well? No, it's the
Backwash.
the backwash. Thank you very much, Eric.
Backwash from the water softener should be routed out to a dry well.
So things we're learning together as a team, things we're learning together as buyers and sellers, and here on social media with Team Powerhouse. We're gonna have a lot of fun learning more about homes and inspections. How about oil versus gas? How many of you heard, I definitely have to have gas before I buy this house, or I definitely want to buy a house with oil, right? People coming in from New York, they typically ask for what?
Yes.
Gas.
Right? Because they only know they've ever had is gas, never had oil before.
It's the delivery system. Gas is just coming to the house.
Right.
You get a bill at the end of the month.
And gas comes from one source, right? The gas company, which means there's no negotiations in the price and value of gas. So gas, while it burns cleaner and people love gas and they love the gas stoves in the kitchen and they love to have gas, you have to consider oil to be a major player over here, because oil typically, if you have baseboard heat, is very efficient, right? Very efficient for your heating, your house. It also doesn't blow around, so it stays warmer longer. You can shop oil prices out with many different companies, but they both have positives to each one. And then everybody wants to have a house with central air today with this heat we're having now, right? Central air has come a long way as well. You may not have central air in your house right now, or a house you're buying may not have central air, but it's much easier to put in than before. They have these ductless systems, right?
Split systems, yeah.
I definitely think we should get somebody in here to talk about split systems, AC units. You may have some questions about your air conditioner and maybe what is involved, or how do I put central air at your house, or what's involved financially with that. And we'll bring somebody in for that too. I think that's a great idea.
We should have an HVAC in there as well.
Definitely a good idea.
The whole R22 versus R410 now, because there's new refrigerant. So yeah.
It's actually funny you mention it, because the R22, I just had to replace my AC system completely. When I bought my house, we had two systems, which means I had to replace two systems. My system actually lasted 29 years. Now, that's not normal. What they say for an average lifeline for a condenser?
Manufacturers?
Yeah.
15, 20 years, I guess?
15, 20 years. So they definitely can go longer, but once they're kaputs, need to replace it. And know that you can't just replace the condenser. You have to replace the air handler as well, because
Not in
now,
all cases.
oh, is that true? I didn't know that.
That's why So I spoke to an AC guy the other day, and he says that in some cases, not all,
Okay.
in some cases, there's a coil inside the air handler that just might need to be changed.
That's very good
So
information.
this is why, this is why there's value in having some of these subject matter experts come in
Absolutely.
and answering these questions. Because, I was under the impression for a period of time that if you had an R22 compressor, you had to change the air handler. Whether there was a flat lay down in the attic or in the basement or whatever, you had to change it out. But I was told recently you don't necessarily have to.
These are things that you as a seller, you as a buyer want to know more about. And I think it's important for you to make sure that you try to get as educated as possible. We as realtors try to get as educated as possible on a daily basis, right? And become your source of information. But it's also our job to get you all the right people through the process that are going to help you to identify the pros, the cons, the goods, the bads, and know that you can learn and be positive and not nervous about the buying process. Don't be nervous about the selling process. Make sure you hire somebody that's educated. Do some research on your realtors. Look them up. See what they're about. Read reviews. That's very important. Would you agree? I mean, we love to ask people to write a review about our experience in working with us, right? And we always tell people, go to Google, go to Facebook, go to Yelp. Read reviews about your agent. Google them. Try and find out as much as possible about them, right? So do your research on when you're selling your house, you should definitely do a little look to see what your house looks like online. Wouldn't you agree? How often we see houses that are for sale and these photos look like someone took it with like a cell phone maybe, or maybe they're blurry or things we're not supposed to talk about, but we're talking about because this is very real over here. You've been on websites looking at property, right? And you see these blurry photos of this house. Believe it or not, sometimes those houses are the diamond in the rough that you're missing out on because of the way it's been presented to you by the possible agent. Or maybe the seller actually took photos and handed them to their agent thinking that they're a realtor and like to play a realtor, which is always funny. But make sure to give that house a little more of a chance. Go see that house. So photos can be very deceiving when you're looking to buy a house. Don't assume the prettiest house is always the best property for you. I'll tell you that sometimes the house that looks the best, and you may come across it, right, Balvin? Would you say it looks amazing on camera, and then what happens?
No, no, thank you.
You're going out there, buyer. They're so excited to see this house, and what happens?
It's a podcast, Balvin. We can't see you.
But you go to see this house, and it's like the most disappointing house, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that house that the buyer had no interest in looking at that house. And which house ended up making an offer? That house right there. So take a chance, keep looking, be excited. We have a lot of people coming in again from New York, and actually not just New York, California and different areas. And when they're coming in from New York, the train station is an important piece of the puzzle as far as knowing where the train station stops, right? If they're coming from New York, and being commutable. How far away do you want to be from your home with your jobs? It's important to know about travel. You may have said, I want to be 10, 15 minutes from my job. Today, you might be 30 to 45 minutes and be willing to make that happen. If you're traveling from New York, know the different routes available. Erik, you know New York pretty well.
Well, interestingly enough, it was an article I read probably about 15 years ago that said that the average commute time for an American is 10 minutes.
Wow.
I don't know if it's still the same number, but it makes it sound as if folks want to live really close to where they work. And I don't know what the basis of that is. Coming from New York, when you live in New York City, you're commuting. You're commuting, whether it's driving or taking a train, subway.
Right.
And a 1 hour commute is not uncommon. It's actually just a thing. It's how it is.
I agree.
So for when a New Yorker probably comes here, I've worked with a couple of folks from New York that moved into Connecticut, and they're not averse to making a drive. They're used to a commuting time, so they don't necessarily have to be within 5-10 miles of where they're going to live.
That's true, because I sold a house to someone in Plymouth. They came from New York, and their commute was like an hour, 2 hours, and they're working in Long Island. Didn't mind at all.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
so it was amazing.
definitely agree with you on that.
But just to touch base on that too, I just had someone purchase a home from West Haven, and
Okay.
they're planning to commute back and forth to Bronx on a daily basis just to go to work.
In the years that I've been in this business, I will tell you, New Yorkers, and I agree with Eric, the travel time is definitely something they're used to and comfortable with. That's a beautiful thing because the opportunity is here in Connecticut. The taxes are lower here in Connecticut than New York. The cost of living is cheaper than New York. And we welcome you guys from New York, but no, the people in Connecticut also want to buy a house too. So we have many different counties in Connecticut, right? There are the counties of New Haven County, Fairfield County, Litchfield County, Hartford County, Tolland County, New London County, Middlesex County, Wyndham County. We cover all these areas. There are 8 of us in the team. We are very knowledgeable in this state of Connecticut, and we want you to know to feel comfortable to ask about these different areas that you haven't heard of before. Don't be worried about them. Don't be nervous. Maybe you want a house that's close and convenient to stores and highways, and maybe you want a house that's going to be kind of farther off the beaten path because you want to be less close to people because you've lived your life so close to everybody.
Or if you're coming from New York, you want to be near pizza.
Oh, pizza.
Yeah.
We are definitely well known for pizza. This is the state and city and county of pizza. Would you agree? Anybody want to throw out some pizza places that they want to?
Oh, I don't want to start that.
Definitely will tell you there's some great pizza here in Connecticut, and as realtors will help you find not only just pizza restaurants, but restaurants as a whole, because you're not used to knowing the little places you haven't heard of before. That's our job. And what we're going to do actually is bring in some people from restaurant tours and bring them in and spotlight them as well. We're looking for your local businesses and people who want to get spotlighted here on Team Powerhouse's podcast. This is the Powercast, and we want to present you and help you to build your business. So if you would like to be part of this Powercast every week, Tuesdays, 5 o'clock, we would love to have you here on the show. One thing I want to kind of talk about with you guys also is, and this came up in conversation a little while ago, we were talking about solar panels. And it's a little bit of a tough one because solar panels on homes that are being sold today, a lot of people don't know what's involved in putting solar panels on your house and then going to go sell your house and what's involved with that. So,
Well, there's some positives to it.
definitely some positives.
There's some positives to it outside of the assistance with the electrical costs. You get a house that has solar panels on it. There's more than likely that the panels were put on when the roof is new,
Hopefully.
because most of the companies want to put panels on a roof that they know is going to be in existence. Well, you're going to sign a 25-year contract to have panels on your roof. They want to know the roof is going to last 25 years.
Absolutely.
It's not always the case. Some companies will remove the panels once at no charge, but the second time they remove the panels, they're going to charge you for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one of the things that you can almost always, not always, but almost always coincide. If the panels have been on the roof for 10 years, then the roof is 10 years old.
That's a good
More
point.
than
Eric.
often, there's some sort of symmetry between that. So
That's a very good point. In owning solar panels, you have now the ability to reduce your electrical costs, but then you have a fee that comes with that solar panel. And that fee can range from, I don't know, $100 to $200.
Like the
let's say.
lease?
The lease.
The lease.
Right?
yeah, leases vary.
It can be lower too, because
Leases vary.
I have one recently for $50-$60 a month they were paying
For lease.
for the lease.
Okay.
Awesome.
So it's
20-year lease.
good to do your
Mm.
good to do your research on what solar panels are involved.
Mm.
But know this: when you're selling your house, you're going to be fully responsible, right, as a seller, to either A, take those solar panels with you,
Mhm.
or have to sell the solar house with the solar panels on them. Which, if a buyer's coming to buy your house with solar panels, there's now let's call it like a condo fee on the house that they have to additionally qualify. So let's just say your house is selling for $400,000, and the buyer qualifies for $400,000, but there's an additional $150 payment due for the solar panels. That buyer may not qualify for that house,
Right.
and that can be a challenge. It may also adjust your value because of that, and what buyers can buy your house. So definitely something to consider when selling a house. Make sure that they're in good shape, obviously, some kind of warranty involved in them, right? And see if you have some kind of ability to buy the solar panel out, what's involved in that. recently I've sold a couple of houses with solar panels. It worked out well for the buyers. They were very happy about it because the cost ratio versus the ownership ratio is on point for them. Anything else about solar panels you guys want to talk about?
Well, just one thing. Normally, in most cases, the seller will provide some paperwork from the solar company. There'll be brochures. Sometimes they're 10 pages. Sometimes they're 100.
Yeah.
Definitely look through them.
Maybe have your attorney read them.
There may be
that's
some
good. Yeah.
some pages that have more important information than others. You know, the contract length, the lease terms, all of that stuff.
Yeah,
But most sellers are providing all of that up front.
yeah, I send that stuff directly to the buyer's attorney and the mortgage
Yeah.
company right away.
If you're selling your house and you have been using your solar panels and you can show that you've been saving some good money, do a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet can be very valuable for you as a seller to the buyers. I know my clients, when I was selling the last couple of houses, they did this spreadsheet. It was very impressive, actually, that they can show every month how much they've saved, what it cost them, what their electric bill was. And that makes a huge difference. So be prepared as a seller to make the buyer feel excited about this opportunity. All right. So again, please go to our YouTube channel. It is Team Powerhouse Real Estate. Hit subscribe. We're going to be checking after the show today who's been subscribing, who's watching, and we're going to give a free tumbler away to you. And make sure
One person.
one lucky person,
Be
I
clear.
apologize. One lucky person is going to get a free tumbler. And if you want your name on it, we can do that as well. I want to thank Heather again for these beautiful tumblers. And thank you so much for your time today at the Real Estate Powercast with Team Powerhouse. We'll see you soon.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming.
Have a good week.